BeCurtis.org.
Hey, my name is Brian Curtis, and I'm the founder of Decentralized Systems. And today I have Dionne Mejer. Is that how you
Major.
pronounce it?
It's a hard J.
It's a hard J, Major?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are a transformative coach. I really got to hear, when I looked up your profile, it said Chief Transformation Officer. I thought that was pretty cool. So
Thank you.
I want to hear the story about how you got to where you're at and what drove you into that position.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, growing up, literally, I think there's a lot in how we're wired just as humans and how we grow up and all that good stuff. And so I love peace, right? And I have a really hard time with conflict, perceived or otherwise. And so I like it when people get along and everybody gets it. And there's all these aha moments. And throughout my career, every role I've had has been a cleanup role and fixing and all that good stuff and right sizing and building and all that good stuff. And then in addition to that, it was always a lot of change management, right? And so, oh, Dionne, you're change management, which is fine. I didn't like that title. And then I was talking with a colleague a couple of weeks ago, and she goes, it's really more about transformation. And I said, that's a word I can get behind because it's transforming the way our brain is processing information and how we think of things, right? So there's this meme that says some people look at the glass half full, some look at it half empty, some forget that it's refillable. And I think there's just so much beauty in that. So that's kind of where that came from. And just that's what gets my heart going. And you can see it when people make that turn mentally. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and especially if you view everything around you in that context and say, "Oh, I see a barrier there. Let's see how can I transform that and do how to break through that." Like maybe especially, and I'm most concerned at all times with my relationships, my personal relationships,
Yes.
whether it's
100%.
business or I don't believe there is such a thing as a business relationships. They're all personal to me, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to open up and make sure that I'm interacting really well with everybody around me.
Yeah.
And how can I transform this relationship? How can I be more open and tell you how I feel? And then, just whatever comes back. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that, Brian. I think, we're all in a human to human world, right? So a colleague of mine says that it's not B2B, it's not B2C, it's not C2C, it's H to H, human to human.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty and value and vulnerability in that. And I'm kind of a late adopter to the Brene Brown fan club, but I started reading Dare to Lead, and man alive, I wish I would have followed and read some of her stuff earlier. So that's for those of you out there that have an allergic reaction to the word vulnerability, which I certainly do. Like I completely stiff-armed it. It's not what you think it is. So I would highly recommend checking it out.
It's that journey of self-discovery. There's in the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've gone through a big process where I was learning more about myself. And I realized that the only way to me really learn a lot about myself is just to start becoming more and more vulnerable and start attracting those type of relationships with people more, because you're exchanging more information with people. You're not staying in these very shallow, conversations that really aren't leading anywhere. Hey, what's the weather like tomorrow? Or, it's just that really matters, right? It's like, how are you feeling right now? Is there anything I can do to help you? Or, because we're all in service to each other, right? We all want to support each other and help each other's growth. So, yeah.
Absolutely, Brian. And I think sometimes we forget that, especially if you're maybe working in an industry that is a little bit more harsh, not harsh, but less human. So yeah, just depends. Industry, culture, teams, leadership, all of that comes into play.
Yeah, my experience is, the bigger the company, usually the more it steers in that direction because of the hierarchical psychology that kind of goes along with trying to move up the ladder, right? That divides people and it makes people resent one another. And there's just so much there. I've witnessed so much conflict especially when you get bigger and bigger companies, just because of how decisions are made.
Yeah.
I think if there's some revolutionary ideas out there where we can change the way decisions are made to incorporate everybody to keep people involved without isolating people and making them feel like they're not part of what's going on, right?
Yeah. And I think that that takes a different leadership skill set as well. Right. And so a lot of what you were just saying is so true, where in leadership, especially in organizations that are remote, we have a hard time managing behavior. Right. So for example, and this example is not isolated to one organization, where there's an individual who definitely not doing well in the role they're in, and is causing a lot of conflict, right? Because management and leadership isn't seeing what everybody else is seeing, right? And or refusing to see it and not making the necessary change. And so this person who is not doing well at the role they're in is being assigned to a new role. And we've all been there, right? The Peter
Oh yeah.
principle. And it's just it degrades credibility, it degrades trust, right? And it's no good.
Especially when as a leader you feel like you have to step in, but you're never going to get the right story, because
Right.
as soon as you start asking questions, then defense mechanisms pop up, and
Yeah.
people, not only that, but the people that are associated with maybe the person you're talking about feels like they can't give you the full story because they don't feel
Right.
comfortable exposing, maybe somebody's weaknesses or whatever. So I'm a firm believer in allowing teams
Yeah.
to discipline their own members and don't
100%.
you know, let the supervisor stay out of it.
Yeah.
Don't have anything to do with it because they don't really know what's going on there, right? There's a lot of interpersonal relationships that are very complex, and just let them
Yeah.
organize the way they need to.
I agree with you on that. I had a team, my very first inside sales team I built was exactly that, where it takes a lot of upfront effort as a leader to say, here's the expectations and here's how we show up, and the hard skills and the soft skills and all that good stuff, right? So it is definitely thinking it through and deploying that and having your team and saying and sharing those expectations, right? So one of my big pet peeves used to be meetings start on time, and one of my team members was late and I locked the door. Right now, we had a team where that was okay to do, where it wasn't embarrassing this individual. It was kind of tongue in cheek. I, as a leader, needed to make sure it happened that way.
Right.
Right. And none of us were late again. You know what I mean? And so it really is that level of self-awareness at the
You're
end of the
just
day.
setting expectations, right?
You gotta label them. I go with clients and I go, all right, let's do your playbook. And we always have a slide on what is your team purpose statement and what are your expectations for your team. And the minute I get blank stares on those things, it's a problem.
Yeah,
Because
because they haven't set the right boundaries. There's no
100%.
expectations. Yeah.
Good fences make good neighbors, good boundaries make good relationships, right?
Yeah.
And we all do it. And so that's where we need a coach, we need a tribe, we need somebody, whether it's an outside consultant or a peer, you want to make sure we're having that interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has been my main fault,
Yeah.
I think, in my past
Oh,
relationships, or just setting boundaries, right? And
yeah.
as you're learning and you're growing, you really love somebody, but if you find yourself being upset all the time and you're not
Yeah.
expressing yourself why,
Yeah.
or you're saying sorry all the time and you
Yeah.
don't know why you have to say sorry, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
these are all signals that are telling you, hey, you need to like express yourself a little more,
Yeah.
tell people what you need or what you want,
Yes.
because if you're not expressing those needs, then you're not going to get them. I guarantee you.
Learning to ask for what you want is hard.
It is. It
It's
can be.
hard.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. There's a great book called The Asking Formula by John Baker. And it's a parable style book. And it's so good. And it talks a lot about that. And so my daughter, I read that book. She's 13 now. At the time, she was probably 7 or 8. And she looks at me and she goes, Mom, I'm thirsty. And I just looked at her and I said, that's fantastic. Is that the question you really want to be asking?
Right.
No, the question is, can I get something to drink? And so, but Brian, to that point, like all of us, I mean, man alive, even as adults, we struggle with identifying what do we want, what are we trying to ask, right?
Yeah. And if something's bothering you, you don't want to, like, if you feel like you're walking on eggshells around somebody, you don't want to elevate them to a potential, it's like there's timing for
Correction.
everything, right? You just have to really trust your intuition, I think, is the bottom line. And what,
Yes.
your heart's telling you what you should be doing and how you need to be expressing yourself.
Mm.
And then especially forgiving and showing compassion for yourself too, and not
Yes.
not blaming yourself for things that, because failures really aren't failures, they're just learning lessons. We're all just
Absolutely.
growing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. 100%. Right. Learn from it and go from there. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Water
yeah.
the plant, don't kill it. I mean, if you throw it outside.
Oh, that's such a, I can't do that analogy. I kill plants and fish. So when I had kids, my family was like, okay, we're going to start a pool. And I was like, that's not even funny, but it is if you know my family. So they're alive and well. I'm just going to let everybody know they're 13 and 11 at this point.
So tell me a little bit more about your ideal client, and maybe some specific techniques that you guys incorporate for, helping businesses run better. Or, I don't know what specifically you target as far as leadership or teams or both.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so quick background, I've been in sales and technology for 20 some odd years at this point, and built and scaled a bunch of different inside sales teams back in the day when inside sales was the buzzword. And really what we do now is we take all of that experience in conjunction with the clients we work with, and we build onboarding programs, everboarding programs. We help build out SKOs. We help build out learning paths and communication paths for the entire organization. So we've started with inside sales teams about 8 years ago, and now we're really flying under the banner of sales enablement, because that's what we do, is create these programs for organizations to learn. So we're kind of that's what we do. And so we work with organizations from folks that have their Series B, C, and D, all the way to Fortune 5,000. It's really about, is the organization, is the leadership ready to change and transform, right? So that's really the trick at the end of the day, is the leader, is the organization ready for the structure, right? Is the team ready to say, we have a plan? So I have a book coming out. I'm super excited about that. So
Congratulations.
thank you. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that coming soon. It's available for pre-order in December.
Nice.
And it's called The Stepped Approach. And so that's what we talk about and it really ties into what we were talking about before, which is you can't have expectations without stating your expectations. Right. So my husband and I got married a year and a half ago.
Oh, congratulations.
We're a blended family. Thank you. And we went on our first date, and I said, you're going to come to my door. You're going to open the door for me. Right. Like I want to be treated like that.
This is how I want it. This is what you're going to do. Right.
Right. And he did, a year and a half later, and he's still doing it. Right. So same thing, with our teams, we start and end on time. We have a purpose for our meeting. We have an agenda. We have an outcome. Right. We're super concrete with these things. And so when we think about a stepped approach, when we work with clients, it's all about, how are we introducing concepts? How are we teaching these concepts, and how are we applying them when we're teaching, and asking our teams to learn, create, and execute against them as well. Right. So we have these different motions. We have a system. We systematize as much as we can,
without trying to create a restraint, right?
100%. Yeah. Lines on the road.
Exactly. So this is a question. Did your husband have any counter boundaries? Like, I'm not going to wear an apron and take pies to the neighbor's house or anything like that?
Oh man. For him, he does. And we're pretty eloquent with it. We try, right? So but for him,
not wearing high heels, right?
He's a guy. So he's like, I'm good. We don't need to cook every night. Like, we can go out to eat, or we could do this, or, I'm like, oh, that's really bizarre, because that's not how I'm wired, right? We would always have dinner together. You cook. Yeah. And he's like, no. I'll clean up the garage. you do the kitchen. Like he's very in his head traditional in that way. And so, or he will lift all the heavy things. He will take out the trash, right? He's like,
Yeah.
nope, that's not for you to do. I will do that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's one struggle that I've had in the past is where I don't really have any expectations at all. And so in the past, it's just like you can cook, we cannot cook, we can go out to eat, we cannot go out to eat. And so, you have to make sure and show gratitude for
Yeah,
whatever you're doing, right? Because if I'm just okay with whatever you do and I don't show gratitude, then eventually you just assume that I don't like anything that you're doing, right?
absolutely.
So you really
Yeah.
have to show gratitude a lot, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're so open like that. I
Yeah.
think that goes a long way.
Yeah. I think there's another really great book. Angela Duckworth wrote Grit, and there's a couple others called to create. I can't remember his name right now, but called to create. Grit was one. There's another one. I'll send it to you after, and it talks about that mindset, right? And what's important to you and what's important to somebody else, and then seeing that other person, right? And so it's really about is our mindset open? Do we have a flexible mindset?
Right.
There's a kid version called Big Life Journal. I kind of like that one too, so I subscribe to it, and they've got printables that I walk it through with my kids and stuff, because it's important to be able to see the other person. To what you're saying, Brian, is, my daughter's 13, and Lord help us all, right? There's not enough money on the planet to make me go back to that. And so there's a lot of drama. And now I can look at her and say, wow, there's a lot of emotion around that. Walk me through it. Right. Or I
Yeah.
might be a little bit more age appropriate. And same thing with our peers, right? Or any relationship. Emotion is a way of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if somebody is happy, sad, stressed out, or whatever, recognize it, and then you can move on and have the very process conversation, right? So for me as a process person, I struggle with emotion. Like I just don't understand. Like, why are you upset? Just fix it, move on.
Right.
That doesn't work with a 13-year-old daughter.
No. No, no, I've experienced both, males, females, and from the teenage years, and I can tell you that everybody's different,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But yeah, you can't pin anybody down and put them in any
No.
categories.
And we all have those moments, right? And like you have a bad day and somebody does something weird in traffic and you're just like, oh man, you know what? I'm just going to go back home and go to bed right now because my reaction is way out of line for what just, which
Right.
tells me I'm not okay today. So yeah.
So how do you get over this? Is a specific problem, and I have a solution for you if you're interested in hearing about it.
Yeah.
But how do you get over, leaders trying to create the right boundaries and getting team players to feel comfortable in explaining their boundaries? Because, especially, if you have a team working for you, you want to make sure that you're not like upsetting them, when you're doing certain things, and make sure that they understand that you're just setting, the right structure so that, you get the right expectations and
Yeah.
that people feel comfortable coming to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good question, Brian. And a lot of times when I work with leaders, it's more of the validation. 9 times out of 10, we know what we're supposed to do. We don't know we don't do what we know we're supposed to
We
do.
should be doing it.
Right. And so a lot of times that was one of my big aha moments when I started consulting, was exactly that, which is, again, a lot of the leaders I worked with wanted that validation and to kind of role play. Right. And so to your point, a lot of it is say exactly what you just said, Brian, which
Mm-hmm.
is, hey team, we're going to have a foundation, we're going to have a framework, and this is what it is, and here's why. And the minute you do that and everybody's held accountable to the same standard, show up on time, do your work your metrics, show up prepared, the table stakes, right? It's a game changer. It is a game changer. And so when we work with leaders, we call that contextual setting statements in a very formal way, but we also call it set the table, right? So why are we here? And so if you're going to lead a meeting, you have your what, your why, and your how.
Mm-hmm.
Set the table. And then give people the space when you have your follow-on one-on-ones where you can talk about, hey, would love your feedback. How do you think you might use some of this? How do you think you might not? Where do you think it might be beneficial? As a leader, we have to have our negotiables and our non-negotiables, right? So I don't
Mm-hmm.
my kids right now are like, I don't want to go to school. Okay, well, going to school is a non-negotiable. Let's figure out a way to make it suck less for you right now. Right. Same thing with our team where, man, we don't really like this project right now. Okay, well, this project is a non-negotiable
Right.
and ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. So how do we come up with a plan to get the work done in a way that people don't hate it?
Right.
Right. So
And people naturally want to be productive. I think that's one of
100%.
the biggest misunderstandings.
Yes.
If you have teams that are not productive, you really have to look at
Yes.
yourself and say, okay, I'm not creating the right atmosphere for these guys that feel like they can be productive. What can we do to change this? Because
100%.
if people are showing up to work and they want to sleep for the first hour, you're not creating the right work atmosphere for them to feel like they want to create, what they can create. Because
Yeah.
99% of us we want to
Yes.
be productive at work.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree with you. Right? People show up and they go, nobody wakes up saying, I really want to go to work and suck today. Nobody.
Right. But
Hopefully.
I hope if I hope I don't fall asleep in my cubicle again, so somebody has to wake me up. I mean, yeah, nobody wants to deal with that. That's just
No, come on. Right. So I think to your point is, I think as leaders, we sometimes overlook the simplicity of that, of giving our teams that purpose, because we think people have that. And it's one of those things as a leader where if we slow down and have a little bit of a why conversation, here's our purpose, here's why we're doing this in a way that connects with somebody else. It doesn't, I think what you and I are talking about may sound big. It's a 5-minute conversation.
right.
Right.
And
So,
people approach the problem wrong. They try and fix a behavior pattern from the outside instead of
yeah.
looking on the inside and say, okay, well, what am I doing I need to free these people up,
Yeah.
right? I need to do something, and whatever I'm doing isn't freeing them up to feel
Yeah.
like they can do what they need to do. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? The old parable with the lion who had the little thorn in his paw and the mouse was able to fix it, right? So you have this amazing, majestic creature that is brought down by a little thorn in his paw, and the minute you remove the smallest obstacle, beautiful things happen.
Oh yeah. It's amazing how that works, right? You just have one little thing keeping you back, and then
Yeah,
you don't even know what it is a lot of times. And then all of a sudden, you
yeah,
finally figure it out.
yeah. Sitting down and thinking it through, giving yourself that quiet time is really important too. Yeah.
Yeah. All of us have so many subconscious, tendencies that we don't
Oh,
realize we're even doing. And then, you know, it, I think meditation, mindfulness are probably the two most important practices. And I mean, you're a consultant. I don't know if you recommend it for businesses,
yeah,
but
100%.
if my business, if let's say I have it doesn't matter how many employees, I would mandatory. It's like, you can do group meditations, you can do whatever, but we're going to institute at least maybe some yoga or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah,
In the morning, make sure that people staying healthy, active, and interacting, so they're interacting in a healthier way during the day. Everything changes, when you're brought down and grounded, right?
100%. Right. We went for my birthday falls typically on Mother's Day. And so my husband planned it and we took the kids and it was a surprise and we went roller skating. Brian, I don't know the last time I've been roller skating. I don't know about anybody else that is in your viewership or you. Do you remember the last time you were roller skating?
I parked next to a roller derby that we used to go to when I was really young, but
Yeah.
I haven't been to years.
And I got to tell you, it was one of those things that just got me out of my own head and it was amazing. So, to your point, I share that story to say, get out there, do something different, whether it's meditating or, a good workout or connecting with friends or church or whatever, right? There's 1,000 ways that we can do something that kind of shakes up our routine and gets our head out of the space it's in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've needed that for a little while now because I got used to going back. We had a place in Idaho and we were just going back and forth to Idaho. And I've kind of
Yeah.
gotten tired of that, you know? And so now I kind of just need to push myself into another area.
Yes.
Roller skating, rollerblading, that sounds fun. I could just go
You
roller
know,
skating or bowling again. I haven't been bowling in years, right?
we love bowling. So yeah, we're from the Midwest. We live in Southern California, so we go bowling quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So you live
Yeah.
in the Midwest now or in Southern California?
No, we're in Southern California, but
Okay.
I grew up outside of Chicago and my dad and my stepmom, we all bowled, right? We were in bowling leagues as kids and yeah. So
Awesome. So I don't want to keep you for, 10 hours here. So I kind of warned you about this when it first started, but I want to hear a success story, something that where you got really good feedback maybe from somebody and you really enjoyed being able to help somebody. I know that's the most fulfilling part of coaching and consulting because you really want to know that what you're doing is actually getting some really good positive feedback, right?
yeah, thank you. It was probably when I first started Inside Sales by Design. There's so many stories, but this one is really good. And the client I had at the time was Aero Electronics and the inside sales team there, and they're fulfilling part orders. And one of the things that I always talk about with folks is sales as a profession. We're helping. The root word of sales is solar, which means to help. And so we had that conversation and we talked about a few other things during this workshop, but it was really, we are professionals and we do help. And we can easily, remove the stigma of being a salesperson. And I talked to their VP of sales after that, and she goes, Dionne, this one individual took that to heart and it completely did a 180 for this person. Where she goes, he was not happy. He didn't think he was in the right path, career, otherwise, whatever. I was gonna either fire him, he's gonna go on a PIP, he was gonna leave. And it completely, that discussion that we all had together changed him. It changed his mindset. And he went on to be really successful.
Wow.
And
Nice.
yeah,
It's just, yeah, I mean, anything you can do for somebody and that helps them stay like blow up and start growing, right? Because they were stuck. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
that's awesome.
cool, right? Just filling that piece with people and watching them take it and fly is cool. That's cool.
Yeah, you don't even need the money then, right? I mean, you got to pay the bills.
Well, I have kids to feed and they're in a bunch of activities and at some point we need to retire, but it's that is the cool part, Brian,
Yeah.
right? It is that fulfillment. And I mean, a lot of people I've worked with at a director VP level are now C level, right? So you see the growth, you see the progression, and it's not just me, right? I play a small part in all of that, but it is a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, for me personally, and I talk about this all the time, and I've been talking about it more lately, is that the money is the byproduct,
Yes, it's a result. Yeah.
those relationships that you build and the
Yeah.
fulfillment that you get when you feel like you're actually in service to somebody is actually what you're really is what is bringing you fulfillment, right? I mean, yeah, you gotta go to the store and buy groceries, you gotta make your house payment. But if you find that you're trying to make money and you're not happy what you're doing, then stop. Just
Yep.
don't do it because you're not going to be happy. You're just not going to be happy.
Nope. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So thank you for joining me today. I loved having you. Hope we stay in contact.
Yes, this was lovely. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation today.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.